I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Amanda Cole. Amanda is the first ever executive director of Plexus LGBT and Allied Chamber of Commerce and has been since 2019. Plexus is a strategic partner in the economic development of Northeast Ohio and serves as a point of connection for corporations, supporters, LGBT businesses, and professionals. As the only LGBTQ business and professional organization in the region, Plexus is a unique and influential network. Amanda's passion and commitment to community partnerships, plus a strong board of directors, has allowed the organization to grow from a small volunteer entity to an economic force in Northeast Ohio. Amanda also serves on the Dance Cleveland and Cleveland Votes boards, and in her free time enjoys Cleveland's culinary scene. She was named one of Cleveland Magazine's 2025 Community Leaders of the Year, so we are thrilled to have her join us today. Please join me in welcoming Amanda Cole.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Angela. Thank you, Becky, and the rest of the Cleveland Leadership Center team. It's a real honor to take a little bit of time and share about Plexus and myself. My name's Amanda Cole. My pronouns are she, her. You can see that I put them there in my signature line. That's an example of some of the ways that we help teach organizations and individuals about inclusion, but I'll get to that a little bit later in my notes. So Plexus is the LGBT and Allied Chamber of Commerce of Northeast Ohio. We have 450 members. Many of you on the call are familiar, either you're partnering with us or you're members of Plexus, and we really appreciate that. What that looks like for our community is larger organizations and corporate members, usually who are partnering with us around working on their belonging and inclusion in the workplace and providing a benefit, right, to their staff and team or board of additional social networking and professional development. Then we have small businesses, and we work with small businesses typically around marketing, brand awareness, and other connections and referrals. And then we have a lot of individual professionals. So we're really creating a unique and diverse network of where people can connect with one another and organizations can get the resources and support they need. So we were founded in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's important to think about how do queer people share information? How do we thrive? How do we bring our whole selves to the workplace? Especially in the early 2000s, before marriage equality was a reality. Now, being able to get married and filing your taxes together and get some insurance doesn't solve for everything when it comes to equal protection, but it was a huge stepping stone in being able to make that a little bit easier for us in the LGBTQ community. So before marriage equality, what was happening and still does happen are really informal networks. So I might talk to my friend Brian, for instance, and say, hey, how did you come out at work? Or I might talk to Ishmael and say, do you all have insurance, same-sex health insurance benefits? And if so, how did you do that? Or, I might ask Heidi, hey, what's the vibe over where you work? Can I work there? I heard some not very positive things for LGBTQ folks. So we're just informal kind of networking. And the clubs and the bar scene are really important for LGBTQ folks, not just because we like to party, but because when you're pushed underground as a community, you find spaces in coffee shops, salons, and of course the bars and the gay bar scene. So in the early 2000s, our founders were like, let's step it out of there, keep that same social connection, empower and formalize this informal networking to help LGBTQ professionals advocate for themselves, understand where they can advance their careers, and ultimately keep them here in Northeast Ohio. Around that same time, the National LGBT Chamber was formed as a chamber of commerce. So then we became one of the affiliate members of the National Chamber. We keep all of our own identity, and we're not dictated from the top down, but what it did is it also then made us a chamber of commerce. So what does that mean for us to go from a networking organization, a social professional development organization, to a chamber of commerce? Then what that did is it sharpened into the forefront for us the power of the LGBTQ entrepreneur and small business owner. And that made a core part of our mission. What is it that LGBTQ people are experiencing when accessing capital, when trying to sign a lease or rental agreement? What kinds of discrimination were they experiencing then? And are we still experiencing now because we don't have full and equal protections? So then that really expanded us from this networking group to this Chamber of Commerce. Around that same time in 2009, the Gay Games came to Cleveland. So the Gay Games are the Gay Olympics. That's what they are for us. But they're really, a not semi-professional. It's an amateur. I don't know. I'm not doing very good at the sports ball. And I know that there's some Cleveland sports people on here. So I'm just going to stop rambling. But the Gay Games came to Cleveland, and that was a really big turning point for Plexus. Our leadership, specifically Michelle Tamala, who was then stepping into her board leadership, and some of our other founding board members joined together with the city and with other LGBTQ organizations, not only to host the games, but they were also some of the largest games and the most profitable. And around that, we really sharpened our toolkit to understand how do we connect corporate businesses and city government with LGBTQ businesses. How do we help the hospitality and service sector to be affirming? Like, if we're going to bring in thousands, tens of thousands of LGBTQ people to a city, how are we ready to be welcoming with them? And so that was a really big boost. And then also, as all of you know from living in Cleveland, when Destination Cleveland, when our sports teams, when conferences are hosted here in Cleveland, we are driving some of that economic mission. And it's wonderful to get those dollars in, but we also want to make sure that we're aligned on good human values. So that was a really important turning point for Plexus as well. Today, Plexus is one of only 55 LGBT and allied chambers of commerce in the country. So when you want to think about chambers of commerce, I think there's nearly 1,200 just chambers of commerce in Ohio alone, just in Ohio. And then even in the space of other diverse or affinity chambers like African-American chambers, Chinese chambers, Hispanic business chambers, they still outnumber us because there's a lot more communities that have those chambers as well. And then of those 55 LGBT chambers, only about 20 of us have paid executive staff. So for a really long time, for 13 years, our organization was led by a really amazing board, really good organization, huge volunteer efforts. And so it was a big win, not just for me in my career path, but for the organization to have this paid executive leadership. Let's see. So when we think about what Plexus is, we have these three pillars. We connect, we educate, and we advocate. So when we're thinking about connecting, of course, that goes to networking, professional connection, professional development a little bit in there. Another part of connecting is supplier diversity. So for LGBT-owned businesses, we want to get them certified, because when you're a certified business, and say you're doing print and promo, or you're a catering company, when you go ahead and you get certified, that makes you more competitive in mostly a corporate sense. It's complicated. I'm not going to get into it, but it doesn't give us the edge that it does around veteran or woman-owned or Black and Brown-owned businesses when it comes to government contracting, because we're not listed as a federal class. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. But we do know that our friends in the corporate side of things have made commitments to, when they are contracting out for goods and services, to try to do a certain amount of spend with small businesses. And they're looking at those different categories. So we want to get small businesses certified. So that's not only a business connection, but we're also hoping to make them get those connections with corporations. For us too, I want to certify a business that, like Pettique, say. It's an LGBTQ owned business. I know they're out and proud as an LGBTQ owned business. They're not going to be selling pet goods to Nestle, say. But if I can get them certified, then what that helps me to know is that they are an out and proud business. Because a lot of times people are reaching out to us to ask for different businesses in our directory, and they want to shop with an LGBT owned business. But I don't want to make the mistake of outing that business. Maybe I know that they're gay owned, but maybe they're not ready for that to be a part of their marketing plan, their business plan. So most of the time, certification is really about doing supplier diversity and working up in that chain. But we like it because it's free. If you're a Plexus member, we want to do it just so we can take good care of our people. When we think about advocating, the way that that has looked for the organization, similar to around the time the gay games came through, not only did we win that bid, we advocated and worked with our local government, but that was also the impetus and the push to have the anti-discrimination ordinance that passed in Cuyahoga County. So we were instrumental in that, along with our friends at the LGBT Center and Equality Ohio. And the reason we have to have these local ordinances is because in the state of Ohio, you can tell me you're not going to hire me because I'm a lesbian. You can say, I don't rent to people like you. You can decline me for a loan, right? Now, the private sector, for the most part, has done some work around not discriminating based on housing, not discriminating based around capital. But the fact is, you could still turn me away from your business. So we advocated to make sure we had that anti discrimination ordinance in place. Other ways that we advocate is a place that anytime our friends in the social spaces, whether it's trying to get the business voice in the business community to call legislators to say, no, like drag is not a bad thing. Drag is a business. It's an economic driver. It's a form of expression and culture. It's a First Amendment right that needs to be protected. So there is a drag ban that's in front of the State House right now. So we'll do some advocating around that. And then there's just the business side of it. You know, a lot of LGBTQ folks seek entrepreneurship or to own their own business. And a way of that is to circumvent the discrimination that we know still happens in the workplaces, which means that when there are cuts to the Affordable Care Act, or there's cuts to other subsidies around healthcare access or to food stamps, our LGBTQ businesses and the LGBTQ folks who tend to work in like the hustle industry, who tend to work in an hourly space, or the food service industry might also be getting supplemental support. They're going to be affected. So we add our voices along with the US Chamber, the Ohio Chamber, the small business majority to say, this is not good for small business and here's why. And then where we especially focus in is to bring forward the impact on our LGBTQ community. And then another area where we seek to advocate is we want to retain talent here. So the more that we then lean into our pillar of education, the more inclusive workplaces that are out and proud about it, they're doing the good work, they're having their best practices, the more that we are connecting those seeking employment, whether they're recent college grads or they're restarting on their career, the more likely it is that we're going to retain talent here in Northeast Ohio. We have a brain drain. I'm sure I know there's research in a lot of different ways that the Talent Alliance has done, Cleveland Leadership Center, you all are a part of this, about why our young and emerging professionals are leaving Ohio. Well, that's kind of double fold for LGBTQ folks because the legislation and the policies and the protections are not very kind to us here in Ohio. And so we might have it in our mind that we're going to have a better time and more progressive and inclusive and frankly, states where we have more protections. But what we're hoping to do is to change that narrative and get people connected to the resources that they need here in Northeast Ohio so they can stay. And then the other part about educate is that really came out of our 501c3. So we actually have an education foundation that we started in 2008. And the reason that we started that separately from our 50c6, which is our Chamber of Commerce, is because we found ourselves literally in boardrooms where other queer organizations were not. Because we did have those corporate relationships and partners in our founding board, and we were starting and supporting employee resource groups, which for large organizations is one of the ways that you can create a sense of belonging, you can create policy pathways, and you can really support your LGBTQ employees. So we started our C3, and we probably lead on average now about 60 trainings for corporate or larger organizational partners, like our friends at the Western Reserve Hospice. So we have a menu of trainings that we offer. We also, because we have a full-time director of our Inclusion Hub, Dr. Jennifer Bosco, she can streamline and create really educational and training programs that work for your organization. And then from that, we saw we were leaving out small businesses. When we do a training for Nestle, say, And we say, you should update your employee handbook so that your dress codes are not gender specific. This way, you're not able to be punitive to transgender people, and you're not leaving out or leaving non-binary or gender expansive people in the lurch. They're going to have like 5 HR generalists across 6 continents. How many continents are there? You know what I mean? Work on updating that employee handbook. But like, how does the coffee shop, or I always say this, how does Gudorf and Sons in Minster, Ohio, my grandma and grandpa's shop when I was growing up, how would they understand to greet people with a hello, how are you, instead of hello, sir, when my butch lesbian wife walks in the door? So, how do we get on the ground level with the small businesses? And also, what we're already seeing just with this small business certification program, our friends at Old Brooklyn CDC are partners in it. They posted about it, and immediately the comments turned into like really negative stuff. So if a small business owner is going to be out and proud about it, they're going to put up a pride flag. How are we showing up as the Chamber of Commerce to make sure they have the support they need when they want to show up in that way? So what we did is I activated the Care Bear stare, and immediately what happens is we don't fight, we don't get into it, but we just fill those comments with positive things because we want people to see that supporting everybody, learning about different cultures and ways of being is good for business. So we're still doing things in a very informal whisper network kind of way while we seek to formalize the process that we do that. And then I think, actually, I think we're at our 15 minutes, so I need to wrap it up here. One thing I think that is really important about the LGBTQ community, and is true for lots of us that are pushed out in the margins, and remembering too that like we don't usually have one identity, we usually have multiple. But the beautiful thing about being pushed out is that it gives us a lot of resilience and creativity. So I think that's a really dynamic kind of part of what Plexus is, because you all of our members, everybody that engages with us brings that in. And then I just think too, it's important also, we don't like to minimize people's experiences down to dollars and cents, but the dollars and the cents of it is we got money to spend. We got $1.5 trillion to spend, but not just LGBTQ people, our allies too. You know, my mom wants to spend her money with businesses that support her daughter. So there's a high level of like loyalty and commitment within our community. And then LGBTQ businesses, we might be not that many, we might be small in numbers, but our impact in the US economy is almost $2 trillion. We're hiring, we're growing, we're reinvesting back into our community. And so that's why being a part of Plexus, wherever you might fall into the spectrum with us, is an important thing about visibility, economic empowerment, and yeah, just finding a place for everybody to get in and fit in.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That was a
Yeah.
great deep dive into the work that you do. So for the first question, you mentioned there's positives and negatives involved in this work too. So how do you as a leader find that balance between visibility and the importance of it and the possible discrimination that comes with it?
Yeah, so I'll answer in a couple parts. For me, it's kind of never been a question, and a part of that comes with a lot of privilege. I've worked in higher education, contemporary art, and now I run a gay organization. So I would say I live in a bubble where there's always been a lot of queer folks around in that way. And then, of course, like whiteness and being cisgender and middle class at this point in my life plays a huge part in the sense that I don't question visibility. But you know, I'm out of state right now, and I'm camping, and I was talking to my camp neighbors. There's not very many people there, and I just went to go mention my wife, and I paused for a second, and I actually said partner. I just kind of had to get my bearings. I wasn't sure who I was speaking to, and I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, oh. And so then I got my bearings. I checked in on my safety, and then I just started talking about my wife. But it's those instances all the time where we really have to gut check. And so then when I am talking to professionals that are not living in these bubbles I've lived in, or an LGBTQ small business, and especially anybody who's transgender, expansive, or non-binary, I tell them all the time, you have to make this assessment, and it's probably going to be nuanced and constant, but you have to make this decision for yourself. And the thing is that I hear from those people is we feel a deep responsibility to be out and proud. We're not just like out here trying to have a bunch of attention, and like being visible and having pride is not a party and it's not like just June is like rainbows and glitter all the time. It really can be a very big decision. So just recently, we were doing one of our affirming business certificate trainings for small businesses. And afterwards, it was in Kent, Ohio. A small business owner came up to me and they said, I've always been out. I've never even thought about it. And so when you walk in my shop, you would know that it was LGBTQ owned. But this year, I haven't known what to do. I haven't known how to make a statement on social or to celebrate and share things that are happening in the community. And I've even taken down some of my decals out of my window because I'm really scared. And they're really grappling with that on a personal level. And then also, they don't want to go out of business and they're not sure that they want to be driven out of business. Then on the other side of it, we have a certified business that is in print and promo. And being a certified business is the reason their company is thriving because they're out. They have said, I'd rather not do business with you. I don't want to print your wedding invitations if you don't like, that I'm gay. And what it's done is it's not only connected them to a larger national business resource center through the National LGBT Chamber, but it's allowed them to secure contracts with corporations they wouldn't otherwise probably be in the room with. It really helps sharpen them as a business owner. So it's individual and it's on both sides. Yeah.
And you talked about Ohio legislation and how that can make
Mm-hmm.
things a bit more challenging at times. Did that have any influence on the fact that Plexus was able to bring on an executive director, and what opportunities did that create for you, and maybe what challenges did that create for you?
Yeah. So I think it's wonderful that I think our timing is unique. So I came in 2019. And then the pandemic happened, like literally on my anniversary of 1 year. And I kind of took it personally from the universe. And that really pushed our organization to say to ourselves, well, we've always said we're more than networking. We're more than a networking organization. But what does that mean now that we can't network in person? So it absolutely put our eyes on the space of where do we advocate? What's our role in advocacy? It made us expand and improve on our workplace inclusion trainings and grow into that certification space. What we're trying to do this year is to figure out how to be taken seriously and how to better and more quickly leverage the business voice. What does that business voice even mean? But how do we do that? Not only when it's anti-LGBTQ legislation that's coming down all the time, but that's important. But then also, where are we learning and creating alliances and partnerships with other mainstream chambers, maybe not just only around LGBTQ visibility, but also around the work that we do around small business belonging, retaining talent and economic development here. So that's one part of it. And then, yeah, I think it's really hard. What I hear from the other LGBT chambers that are still board led is they're just, I mean, I already feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole, but they really feel like they're playing it. So they don't know how to even figure out how to prioritize showing up around legislation or where to put time and effort into supplier diversity versus networking. So I would say that that's been really important. And then we've grown and diversified our board, not just like in identity representation, but also in backgrounds and skill sets. And I think that gets easier when you do have paid staff. Yeah.
So how does someone become a certified business, and how
Yeah.
does someone become a member? What are you looking for?
Thanks for asking that. So being a member is really easy. You can apply online. We try to make it money not being a barrier. So if you're an individual and you think, I don't need this for my business, or my company's not yet a member and I don't know how to help my company become a member, but I want to get involved, then it's only $100 or $50 if you're a young professional. And then you get our newsletter. You can log into the member info center and you can network and see resources that are kind of in this member only space. And then you get to come to all of our events for free or at a discount. If you're a small business or a nonprofit, it's just $200 for the year. And with that, you get some additional things. You get an enhanced Google Analytics directory page, and we love our directory page because we want people to go there as the resource to find the things that they need. And what happens is you fill out the directory page, you show up, your Plexus directory page shows up in the top 3 search results if you fill it all out. Then you can post on our job board. Only our members can post on our job board. At least once a month, I have some company from somewhere saying, I'll pay you $500 to post on your job board. And I'm saying, you can pay me $500 and be a member, because you have to be in community with us, right? And a lot of times people will see a job posting and they'll reach out to me and say, are you sure that company is hiring trans people? And I say, yeah. And what happens is I say, it's this person and this person. Let me see if I can get you a coffee date. Or here's what I know that they're doing in their company. And so it's just really important to be in space. For nonprofits, you're able to post on our events calendar. We want our events calendar to be a place where you can get in and fit in. And again, that's LGBTQ and allied. And then we have different levels for corporations that have some additional benefits. To become a certified business, you have to be 51% owned. That's it. You have to own the majority of your company. You don't have to be making any money. You just have to be incorporated. It can be a solopreneur. You can have up to 499 employees and still be considered a small business. When you join Plexus as a small business at $200, then the certification fee of $900 with the National LGBT Chamber is waived. And that's a relationship that we did on purpose. They put it up there to make it so that you would join at your local chamber. Then when you become certified, we do your site visit, because here's one of the funny things. If I'm a woman-owned business, I would show you my birth certificate to let you know that I'm a woman-owned business. Now, this could be trickier for a trans woman because not always are they able to, depending on different legislation, get their documents in alignment. But say I'm a cis woman and I'm a woman-owned business. I show you my birth certificate. If I'm a minority-owned business, similar things. There's documentation that proves your identity. We do not give out gay cards, contrary to what you might hear. And I have an agenda, but we don't have a gay agenda. So the way that we prove that you're a member of the community is you're in the chamber, and then we meet you. And then that's how we understand that you're a member of the community. So it's kind of one of those wonky, interesting things about that. And then once you get certified, then you are entered into a database of about 1,200 other LGBT-owned businesses. And then there's corporate members that go in there and search for you. And then we, on our end, make sure that we're amplifying you in a unique and specific way to help you make the connections you're looking for. Did I get to it?
Yeah, that's great. And so community and collaboration is absolutely at the center of your leadership.
Yeah.
And just this year too, you're a lap organization with our Cleveland Bridge Builders here. So you have invited a diverse group of professionals in to help you creatively problem solve some of the issues you're dealing with. So what do you want all of us to know on the call about coming into community with you? How can we support, maybe through membership, maybe not?
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to say, I think Luis was on here earlier from Multicultural Queer Association. So I just want to give a shout out to a new queer organization. We love that. We seek to be in community all the time. I like to tell people that we do a lot of events. We do about 6 events a month. And we are a staff of 2 full-time, 1 part-time person. So what I really love is if you have something that you think our people in our network need to know about, or we want to collaborate with you, I love to ride waves. As long as it's mission aligned for us, as long as we're clear on why we're coming together, let's put my logo on it, let's promote it as your event, let's show up and do this together. So I almost always find a way to yes. Almost always I find a way to yes if it's mission driven. So 100% we seek community partnership. Also, you should know if you're a nonprofit organization and you cannot afford the $200 for the year, because that's a reality, and you're mission aligned, that means you're doing small business or entrepreneurship work, you're working in the space of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, or you're a queer organization, we give you a community partner membership because we want you to have a website through the directory. We want you to post your events. We want to be in community with you. So that is really important. And then I will say this, Plexus has never seen a decline in our membership. Our whole almost 20 years, we've only gone up. Now, we would expect at some point to hit a plateau and be like, okay, here's our normal. Our membership has plummeted 12% for the first time in our 20-year history. And that is because we are seeing corporate friends and partners walking away. We are seeing small businesses who are having to make really hard decisions about that $200 because of increased costs and tariffs. And the attack on DEI has made our mission ever more critical, but definitely harder to do. So yeah, standing up in membership is great. I mean, I was raised Catholic, so pass the basket around and tithe to a queer organization. That's like one reason to be a member. And then the last thing I'll say, I can't forget, we are, so even though we're seeing that and it's become harder for some of our, especially larger organizations to do this work with us, we are still hosting an employee resource group meeting. It's the LGBTQ Workplace Impact Symposium next Wednesday. It's only $100. The Cleveland Guardians are hosting us. So even though we are seeing a harder time to do this in a budget way, a lot of nonprofits are, we know that it's ever more important. So on the 12th, I can send that around to follow up. If you're doing any work in DEI, HR, belonging, LGBTQ inclusion, it'll be a really wonderful half-day summit.
That's wonderful. Please include, I will include that information in the wrap up
Cool.
email.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Amanda, so much. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us today and to shed some more light on Plexus and the work that you do.
I loved it. It was wonderful to be here with y'all. Thanks for taking a break with me.